Hello and welcome to Database Management Systems. I'm Javita Christie, and in this video, I'm going to explain to you constraints in SQL that allow you to add rules to your tables to regulate what kind of data is inserted into your table. So let's begin. The first constraint that I'm going to talk about is the not null constraint. This is the constraint that makes sure that the column that is declared not null is where no one can enter null values. So let's create a table called customers. And here I want to add a column called ID with a data type number 3. But I want to make sure that ID is not left null by anybody who is inserting data into customers. So here you're going to write down not null right after the data type. Put a comma, and my next column is a name with a variable character data type of 20. And now I'm going to put a semicolon. And when it says table created, I'm going to insert data into customers. So insert into customers values, and I'll insert first proper values. And you can see it says one row created. There is no problem in inserting this value. But let us say that I'm trying to insert only name. So I'm just trying to do insert into customers, only the name values, and I'll insert a name. You can see it says cannot insert null because I'm trying to not insert the ID. I'm only trying to insert the name. So it says that that cannot be inserted. So that's how the not null constraint works. The second type of constraint is the unique constraint. So at this point, I want to create the same customer table. So I'm going to drop the one that is here, drop table customers. And let me create it again, create table customers. This time, the constraint that I'm going to add is the unique constraint. So this time I'm going to again put ID, but now I want to make sure that ID is unique, that it's not repeating. So once again, I'll give it a data type number 3 and put the unique constraint with it and name with a variable character size 20. And when it says table created, I can start inserting. So insert into customers values, and I'm going to insert 1 and ABC like before. It says one row created. Now let's try to insert again. This time I'm going to change the name, but I'm keeping the ID same. And you can see it gives the error that unique constraint is violated and it cannot insert. So it's not able to insert because 1 is already inserted as an ID. It has to be unique. And so when I try to insert 1 again, it's going to give me an error. Now the next type of constraint that we're going to talk about is the primary key constraint, which is a combination of not null and unique. So if ever you want any column in your table to be not null as well as unique, then you're going to make it a primary key. So once again, I'm going to remove the table that I just created and create the same table again. Create table customers. This time, I'm going to make ID the primary key. So after giving the data type, I'll write down primary space key, and the next column is name. And let's try to insert something into it. So insert into customers and values, and this time I want to insert, say, 1 comma ABC, which is fine, it gets inserted. But next, I want to insert 1 comma ABC again, or let's just change the name and type something else. And it will say unique constraint violated. Let's try to insert a null value inside. So to do that, I'm just going to type over here name and then just try to insert the name. So I forgot, I removed the single quote. So single quote, and you can see it says cannot insert null into this because null, because primary key is a combination of not null and unique constraints. Now let's move on to the next constraint you can add to your table, which is foreign key constraint. For this, I'm going to create another table and I'm going to name it orders. So create table orders, and orders table is going to have an order ID, which is going to be number 3. Orders table is also going to have a customer ID, which I'm going to take from customer table, which will show that this customer has placed this order. Now for this customer ID, I'm not going to define anything. I'm going to reference it from that table. So you need to write down references and then you will specify in bracket, then you will specify the table that it's going to refer. So that table is customers. And in bracket, you'll specify the column name that it's going to refer. So it's going to refer the ID column of customer. So you'll write it like this, references customer ID. And then you close the bracket, semicolon, and run it. It says table created. Now let's first of all take a look at the customer table. So customer table contains only one customer with ID 1 and name ABC. So when I try to insert into the orders table values where I'm entering order ID as 1 and the customer ID as 2, then it's going to give me an error, and the error is integrity constraint violated, parent key not found. This error is coming because 2 is an ID of customer, but 2 as a customer is not present in the customers table. So the foreign key puts a constraint on your table that whenever you're trying to insert something, you have to insert only what's present in the parent table from where you referred. So since my customer table only contains a customer with ID 1, I can insert only 1 as a customer ID in orders table. So let me just show you that. Insert into orders, values, and this time I'm just going to do 1 comma 1. And that is inserted because 1 is a valid customer ID. So this is how foreign key works in SQL as a constraint. Now the next constraint that I'm going to talk about, let me clear the screen. Now notice what happens first of all when I try to delete, when I try to drop the table customer, or I try to first of all delete something. So let's say that I'm deleting from customers where ID equal to 1. So immediately it will say that integrity constraint is violated because there is a child record. This means that because customer ID 1 is added in the orders table, I cannot delete it from customers table now. I have to first delete it from orders table, and only when it is deleted from the orders table, I can delete from customers table. Also, you will notice that you won't be able to drop this table either. If you write drop table customers, then here too, you will be getting an error that says unique or primary keys are referenced by foreign keys. So you cannot drop customers till you drop orders. That's how it works. Now that's the foreign key constraint. The next constraint that I'm going to talk about is the check constraint. So let's create a table. Create table. Uh, let's name the table university students. So create table university students. And here I want to add an ID of a student. So let's give it a data type number 2. Now next, I want to create this table only for students who are having a percentage above 80. So in this case, I'm going to add a column called percentage and also give it a data type. For example, number 3. And after this, I want to add a constraint on percentage, which is that percentage must be greater than 80. So in this case, I'm going to put that constraint here itself next to the column that the percentage must be greater than 80. So here you can write down check and in bracket mention that the percentage column must be greater than 80. So if someone tries to insert a percentage column, a percentage of a student with a percentage less than 80, then it's going to give an error. So that's it, and let's put a semicolon and run it. It says table created. Now let's insert into university students values, and I'm going to insert the first student with percentage 90, and it is inserted. Let's try to insert percentage less than 80. So let's try 45. It says check constraint violated. So the constraint is violated because percentage is less than 45. If you check the table, university students, then only one row is inserted, which was with the correct percentage. So this is how you can implement check constraint. But check constraint is not limited to just checking a value in this manner. You could also provide a list of correct values to choose from. For example, let me create another table, this time students from the music club. So let's call it music club students, or let's just call it a music club, where I want to put ID of a student and the gender of the student. So now for the gender of the student, I want to specify the male and the female gender. And I don't want people to, just write down capital M or capital F, because if I leave it open, then people are going to write, somebody will write capital M, someone will write a small m, someone might write capital F or small f, someone might prefer to write the full words male and female, and they might write everything in capital or everything in small, and there are so many possibilities. So I don't want that to happen. So I can write here gender, and I can specify the data type. So I'm going to give it a data type of variable character 6. 5 is enough, so variable character 5. I think, yeah, it is 6. So variable character 6. And after that, after writing this, I'll write down check gender. So check and then in bracket gender, and then you'll write in, and then within bracket I'm going to specify what is correct. So I want the F to be capital and I want M to be capital. So you see I've mentioned both in single quotes because both are strings, and this is a list actually. So I'm providing a list of correct values. So anybody who wants to insert can insert one of these values with the same spelling, and even it is case sensitive. So let me close the bracket and put a semicolon. It says table created. Now let's try to insert something. So insert into music club values, and let's put an ID 1, and let's try to insert it correctly by typing female with F capital. One row is inserted successfully. But if I try to do the same thing, and this time I'm just writing a capital F instead of writing the full female, then it says check constraint is violated here. And you can also try to write female with F small. Then also it is going to give you a check constraint violated because F is lowercase and not uppercase. So it is very case sensitive. And this is how you can use check constraint in SQL. And the last constraint that I'm going to talk about here is the default constraint. So let us see. So let us create a table. Create table, and I'm going to just name the table default demo. And in this table, I'll add an ID with number 3. And let's say that if somebody does not enter an ID, then I want this to be equal to 0. So if somebody leaves the ID null, then I want the ID to be 0 and not null, because I don't want to deal with null values. I want to deal with zeros. So after this, I'll just write down default 0. And also I want to add a name 20. And okay, whenever you get this type of an error, that means you must have created this type of a table in your system already. So I'll just change the name of this table. Let's just call it table XYZ once again. So I'll just call it a table XYZ, and name, it says table created. Now I'm going to do insert into XYZ values, and I'm going to enter ID 1, name ABC. It is inserted successfully because it says one row created. But let me try to keep this value null. So insert into XYZ, and I'm going to write down name, and I will insert only the name. Now let us see how the data looks like. So select star from XYZ. You can see this is how the data looks like. When I inserted 1, it inserted the ID 1, but when I left ID null, then it inserted the default value 0. So this is how you can put a default constraint in a table in SQL. And that's it for this video. I'll see you in the next one. Thank you for watching.